Something caught my eye when it was on YouTube the other day. There are actually scenes from this famous movie. I think it came out in 1973. It's called Oh Lucky Man. It's starring Malcolm McDowell, who was a really brilliant actor. He's a great actor, he's a British actor, who I think he was born in Yorkshire, and he also played the antagonist or the protagonist of A Clockwork Orange, the young man who was brutally rehabilitated in a prison or institution. And here Malcolm McDowell plays this very innocent and sort of idealistic type of character, very different character in A Lucky Man, who is eventually stumbles upon this sort of totalitarian kind of institution where he's abducted by the military and he witnesses all these very bizarre experiments. Like at one point, I saw a scene where he sees that somebody's head has been transplanted, has been placed onto a cow. So it's like the body of a cow and the head of a man, and fully intact, alive, but somehow they biologically they managed this an enormous feat that is just kind of inexplicable. You can't really see how they must have done this, and it's at some point I actually want to see the whole thing. I've been very busy, and at some point I do want to see the whole thing.
I don't know if he's trying to speak
But it's from what I've read about it, it's a sort of a satire of British corruption, and particularly military corruption, and I think it covers many other sort of societal layers as well, right? But it has that sort of European, very beautiful quality, because the movie was indeed set in England. And so there's the different layers of tragedy, of humor, of feelings of salvation, feelings of hope, all kinds of stuff. It's very well crafted, just in very much the same way that A Clockwork Orange is, right? But I think also it's important to me. I think the reason why it got my attention in particular is because you see a lot of the dynamics that are very similar to some of the dynamics of the themes that are in Dostoevsky's novels. Primarily, the two Dostoevsky novels that come to mind are the book The Idiot and the book Crime and Punishment, right? So in Crime and Punishment, Rodion Raskolnikov, the protagonist's theory is that the ends justify the means because it's about what benefits the greater good, the greater number of people, right? And there's a natural hierarchy that's supposed to exist periodically, throughout, as the centuries of the human race go on. There's always a certain point in time where a new word has to be uttered, and a new revolution has to start. And certain people are born to do this, and certain people are not. Right? Certain people basically are superhuman, and some people aren't. It's a very silly concept when you break it down to that level, right? And the very juvenile, very simply explained sort of level. It's very similar to the Aristotelian theory, actually, that some people are naturally born slaves, but other people are naturally born to rule. But Raskolnikov's theory is a more thinly disguised way of saying that. But he as a kind of a distraction, sort of a smokescreen that he uses, and makes it sound like it's all about revolutions and uttering new words, and it makes it sound very promising. Like, oh, I'm giving people a gift. It's innovation. It's, Einstein was an innovator, so why can't I be an innovator? And so it's very deceptive. It's very tricky that way. And and you as a reader cannot fall for the trick. And so that the world of Oh Lucky Man is like the way it would be, you imagine, and the way it currently is actually in reality in many ways, but it's like Raskolnikov's fantasy what he would want if the world followed this sort of Aristotelian kind of sort of method, I guess, or philosophy, and which reveals that he's not just Raskolnikov is not just this sort of weirdo in rags with in debt, which he is. It's an aspect of who he is, but you feel supposed to feel very lucky that he's not in a position of power. That's a huge part of it that I think is also important, right? And the main character, the young man who Malcolm McDowell plays in A Lucky Man, he is very reminiscent of the character Mushkin in Dostoevsky's novel The Idiot. Mushkin is this naive, idealistic character. However, there's more layers, there's more complexities to him. He is, he has epilepsy, he has a certain neurological condition that does render him kind of an idiot, socially inept and seemingly naive, but it gives him certain kinds of spiritual advantages. His lack of intellectual faculties give his mind a kind of a sixth sense. Not in the sense of seeing ghosts, but it's a little bit more mysterious than that. Right? It gives him a sense of the spiritual, a sense of, as I've discussed in the other videos in the past, what you call the numinous. That's a big theme in that novel. And he is at odds with the corruption of society in the same way that the character in A Lucky Malcolm is at odds with this sort of really bizarre, perverted kind of institution. So you see basically Raskolnikov's world, the Aristotelian world, and Mushkin's kind of spiritual. How do I say this? This kind of the sense of like when you're wearing clothes that are too small for you, right? It's like spiritually, he's so developed in other ways that society that tries to create this imaginary hierarchy doesn't really have any effect on him. It doesn't really have an effect on him on his heart, basically. And at his core, he can't really be corrupted by it. He's immune to it, and yet he's subjected to it. And there's nothing really that he can do about it. And as I've mentioned before, I think that this is an important aspect. The Aristotelian aspect is an important part of Crime and Punishment that needs to be looked at, because it is very easy to get fooled by the character in thinking that he is merely just an outsider who's advocating for free thinking and more liberal thinking and more and the importance of revolutions and creating change and making society a better place. And that's all true, but he's obviously, when you look at him a little more deeply, he's not really a proponent of those things. Whereas Mushkin is a force for good, pretty much on all different levels, right? He has his flaws, but he is indeed subjected to this kind of bizarre and perverted society, in very much the same way that you see the character in A Lucky Man trapped in this almost very dreamlike and grotesque kind of situation that he feels that he can't escape from for a while. And it's at some point, yeah, I definitely do want to see it, and I would highly recommend it.